10 things to know before traveling to Venice. I recently traveled to Venice and had a fabulous trip. I posted a video about the experience and have left a link in the description below. After visiting, however, I thought it would also be helpful to share these 10 things you might want to know before traveling to this beautiful city. Number 1. Safety. I had read numerous times that you needed to be mindful of pickpockets and scammers when traveling to Venice. As soon as I got off the train, I encountered my first situation. I had to get a water taxi to my hotel, so I stepped out onto an upper plaza to survey the area. Immediately, a man with an official-looking vest tried to grab my suitcase and ask if I needed a water taxi. I was immediately leery, but asked him how much. When he said €100, I said no and walked away. Perhaps it was legitimate for a private water taxi. However, I found my way down to the lower plaza to a water taxi ticket office and bought a ticket for less than €10. In all the cathedrals and crowded places, there are warning signs everywhere about pickpockets and scammers. I don't think you need to panic about this, but just be mindful of your belongings at all times. Number 2, communication. Venice's main industry is tourism, so you will find plenty of staff at hotels and restaurants that speak multiple languages. On the public transport water taxis, communication was more difficult. I think they could usually understand my questions, but I couldn't always understand their responses. It took persistence to get answers, often to the point of them getting irritated with me. But for the most part, I had no problem finding English speakers. Number 3, navigation. Navigating the city takes some focus. There is often little or no signage to help you find your way. The water taxis are quite chaotic, and you have to keep your wits about you. Not all of the taxi docks have a ticket office, and the ticket machines only had 3 languages, none of them English. So I was relegated to only using docks that had a ticket office. When I purchased a ticket, I would ask what platform and boat number. The platform was fairly easy to find, but the boats were not marked with any kind of signage or numbers. Each time a boat arrived, I had to ask a staff person if it was my boat. There didn't seem to be a clear system. People would be on one side of a rope, but then people would enter from the exit. It was a bit of a free-for-all, and you could easily walk on board without scanning your ticket. Once I managed to get on the correct boat, I always breathed a sigh of relief. But the sigh of relief was short-lived because now I had to make sure I got off on the correct stop. It's easier to get off the boats than on because the docks have signage as you pull up. However, on my first trip to my hotel, I didn't know my boat dock name, so I plugged my destination into Google Maps and followed the route. When the boat stopped at a dock near my hotel, I got off. If you can figure out in advance what the name of your water taxi dock is, it would certainly help. But if not, my method worked well enough. Number 4, ease of travel. Because the train is basically flat, walking is quite easy. However, the stairs throughout the city generally do not have handrails, so you will want to take a little precaution on them. The water taxis didn't have any special ramps to get on and off. They just pulled up close to the platform and you had to step down into the boat. And they don't wait for you to get settled. They go very quickly. I took a large public transport boat to Burano, and they did have a rounded ramp to get on and off the boat. This was much less precarious. For the gondola ride, I had to step from one gondola to another to get in. I'm fairly agile, so it wasn't a problem. However, anyone with mobility issues might find it more troublesome. I assume there are some spots where the gondolas are easier to get in and out of. You might want to look for them if getting in and out worries you. Number 5, taxes. In Italy, you have to pay VAT taxes, or value-added taxes. I forgot about the VAT tax reimbursement and threw out all my receipts. At the airport, I discovered I could have been reimbursed, so make sure you save any receipts that include a VAT tax. Number 6, crowds. I visited Venice in mid-November and it was crowded. It's hard for me to imagine what it would be like in the height of the tourist season. For my one full day of touring, I started out at 8:30 a.m. and there were a few people. By 9, it wasn't too bad. By 10 a.m., the crowds had doubled. So it's smart to get an early start. With that said, the shops seem to open at random times. Many are family-run businesses, so they open when they are ready, usually by 10 a.m. I would suggest getting some walking and sightseeing in during the morning hours when it's a little quieter. It's the best time to get unobstructed photos. 7. Weather. Again, I was in Venice in mid-November and it was sunny but cold. I can't vouch for what the weather is like in other seasons, but just know that when you walk through the streets, no sunshine hits you. So even if it is sunny out, it feels a bit colder when you aren't out in the open. I did notice that on the open plazas, everyone gravitated towards the sunny areas. 8. Smell and dirt. When I was planning this trip to Venice, I heard mixed reviews from friends, and one of the complaints was that the town was smelly and dirty. In mid-November, I did not notice any smells. Perhaps it's different in the heat of the summer. As for dirt, it isn't the cleanest city I have visited. I don't think the sidewalks are washed every morning. I think the sea air probably wreaks havoc on the buildings, which have some wear and tear, but I think it gives the city some charm. Everything feels very old world here. 9. Dining and food. The hours for dining in Italy are later than you will find in other countries. Lunch is usually served until 2:30, and then there is a break until restaurants open for dinner at 7 p.m. I arrived in Venice around 3 p.m. and hadn't eaten lunch. My hotel recommended a restaurant that stayed open, so I managed to find something to eat. You can find some places open between lunch and dinner hours, but just know that you might have to look for it. Also, the menus usually have appetizers, first course, and second courses or main entrees. The entrees don't usually come with any side vegetable or potatoes. Everything is paid for a la carte. Even water isn't free, and often the only bottle they have is huge. I usually order just the second course and maybe a side salad, but for heartier eaters that need a more substantial meal, just know that it would be easy to drop 50 euros for lunch and more for dinner. Now, there were small takeaway restaurants or casual walk-up counters where you could get a bowl of spaghetti or a pizza for around 10 euro, so there were ways to save money on food. However, for sit-down restaurants, they are just expensive. 10. It's beautiful. Let's end on a high note. I don't want to scare anyone away with all these cautions. Venice is one of the most picturesque cities in the world. Every time you round a corner, you see another pretty sight. The canals, bridges, seaside, churches, and historic buildings all produce a wonderful atmosphere. Make sure you carry a battery pack for your camera or phone, as you'll want to take plenty of pictures. I hope that helps anyone planning a trip to Venice. As always, if you have questions, feel free to ask in the comments section. For senior and solo travelers, check out the Senior Solo Travel website and Facebook forum where you can interact with other travelers. And if you'd like to follow my senior and solo travel journeys, please like and subscribe. Next stop, Zurich.